feel like this is the most sensation I've had with this car since purchasing it back in July.
Nothing. Won't turn a bit. And this is trying to go clockwise.
She is stuck.
Nothing really suspicious. You can see the end of the magnet. We do have metallic particles in there. But yeah, I mean, that doesn't look too hot. You can see kind of like a coppery substance there. Ridiculous. I've never dealt with anything like this. Oh, it's off. Oh, yep. There's one belt. And I have no idea how you would even do this in the vehicle, but that's not gonna come off easily. I know it. Oh. Lovely. Crank out. Thank you for blowing up Volvo part on a Jaguar. Ta-da! Other than the blue. Okay, we're gonna switch gears really quick. We're gonna do the upper control arms just because once the strut's in, the bolts that hold the upper control arms in cannot come out because of the spring, so might as well do it now to be safe. The one nut that holds the upper control arm is right there. It's kind of hard to see, right in the center. It's blurry, but it's right there. I bet you I might be able to get a wrench down there just to hold it in place. Is it going to be fun? No. But do I have to remove the wipers to remove the upper control arm? No. So let's see what we can do about that. Oh yeah, look at that. 17 wrench just popped right in there. After unbolting the two nuts that are on the opposite sides of the strut tower, for the right side of the vehicle, you should be able to pull the bolts straight out to release the upper control arm. Once you have the two bolts out, it's just a matter of pulling out the control arm. There you go. I'll get your other one. Get your new one. New control arm. This is a Euro spare control arm, and then this is the OEM Jaguar control arm. They are stamped with the correct side, so this says L, and this is not L. We are on R. So let me go get the other control arm. I now have the R control arm, and that's what's going to go on. Okay, take the bolts we just took out. Get this control arm in there. Might take a little bit of wiggling. Move your strut around. Move the control arm around until you get the bolt in the hole. A little bit of mallet never hurt. Knock, knock. Okay. One bolt is in, now the next. That is in as well. So now we just go on the upper side again and we tighten the two nuts that we took off. One of them goes up front and then one goes right between the coolant reservoir and the strut tower. Oh, I got it in. A magnet is going to be your best friend for this job on the right side. The torque spec of the two nuts, both of them are 70 Newton meters. A recommended tool for this job is a ratcheting wrench, but also with the swivel head. Definitely going to make your life a lot easier for this job. So a quick tip, you can use the ratcheting wrench on the top, and then on the bottom just use either another ratcheting wrench, but you can really tighten that bolt. Let's do the front one, and then that's it for the upper control arm install on the right side. Once again, I'm doing the trick. I have a ratcheting wrench on the top, and then I'm using my hands on the bottom here. So we're now going to replace the left-hand side upper control arm, and the nut that we were struggling with the other side. This side is a little easier. So you're supposed to unplug your ECU to gain access to the nut that's right there. See it? Right there. Because I'm doing the engine swap, the ECU is already unplugged, so we're good to go there. And then let's see where the other nut is. The other one should be right there. Real easy. Both the nuts and the bolt heads in the wheel well are 17 millimeter. I recommend you just get a set of ratcheting wrenches, and that makes your life a lot easier. Once you have those two nuts, you go underneath, and with the strut out of the way, you can just pull the two bolts out. Once you have the new control arm installed, you'll reinstall the two nuts that you took off, and the torque spec for those are 70 Newton meters. We are about to witness a great moment. The lift cart is about to be removed from underneath the Jaguar. I didn't record all of the videos for what I did. I just spent a long time trying to get everything lined up and get the shifter into place. Here we go. Let's lower the lift table and get the car up. There's a lot of stuff we still have to do. $300, $330 on sale. But great tool. I've actually used this to unload the engine from the back of the pickup truck. So I like it. Lift table is good. Yay! Now let's torque everything. So, subframe is in, engine is in. This one is not seized, luckily. But we just have a bunch of little things to take care of. Connectors, I did not tighten the exhaust, so I gotta do that. So the tricky part is you have to clock it and then tighten it with it clocked. So I just waited on that. I'll hopefully be able to get to all the exhaust bolts and nuts and just tighten it down somehow. New upper control arms. So I gotta connect the spindles to the upper control arms. What else? Yeah, and then we just have ground cables hot leads going to the power steering. So the subframe bolt torque spec for the front two 21 millimeter head bolts is 80 Newton meters plus 360 degrees. And then for the ones back here, right here, they are 80 Newton meters as well. And then the second stage is 270 degrees. And then for the transmission mount, it is 45 Newton meters all around. So let's do the first stage of torquing, and then we will try to do the 360, but that's going to be hard. So for the degrees, so 360 degrees for the front two bolts and the 270 for the rear, we're going to put the car on the ground to do that. It's going to be the safest way to do it. To do so, I need to reconnect the new upper control arms to the spindles for both sides. So I'm going to do that real quick, which will allow me to put the wheels on, put the ramps down, and then I can actually do the torque spec for the subframe. We're now going to go underneath the vehicle and we're going to torque the subframe bolts. The 21 millimeter bolt up front, you have the first torquing sequence, stage 1 of 80 Newton meters, and then afterwards you have to go 360 degrees all the way around. So I don't even know what that torque is going to be, but it's going to be insanely high. Even this breaker bar is probably not long enough, or I'm too weak. A good tool for when doing this is to have a paint pen, mark part of the chassis somewhere and the bolt, and then you can follow the bolt all the way around and you know sort of the degrees that you've gone so far, because I doubt you can do 360 degrees all at once. The second bolt for the subframe, the 15 millimeter and back, that one also has a stage 1 torque spec of 80 Newton meters, and then the second stage is 270 degrees. Okay, let's see if I can do this. Pretty crazy how high that torque is for the bolt. So as you saw, I put a extension on my breaker bar and luckily it held up, but wow, that's fun. Okay, now to do the second bolts towards the back there, 15 millimeter, and we're going 270 degrees. Next, we're going to torque the engine mounts. So next up, I'm going to try to torque down the catalytic converters. What's tricky about this is the flange is now welded to the catalytic converters, which is nice in one way, bad in another. So the tricky part where I was getting at with that was that you can clock these however you want. And ideally you want it right up against the body. And so that just makes it tricky because you're holding it in place and then trying to torque the two nuts on the exhaust manifolds. I'm using wood and some rubber to hold the back end up. That's kind of roughly where we want the exhaust to be. And then I'll just hold this by hand and torque with the other hand. The passenger side exhaust is really hard to torque because one of the nuts goes up away from us and you can't get anything in there. The power steering motor is right here as well. So there's a lot of things in the way. Okay, let's move on. Now we're gonna torque this shift rod selector bushing, 2 8mm bolts, and the torque spec is 12 Newton meters. Next, we're gonna install the drive shaft. The long drive shaft goes towards the front, and the center support bearing, right there, and then the short drive shaft goes from the center support bearing to the rear differential. Okay. Torque spec for the center support bearing is 40 Newton meters. Next thing we're going to do is put the E12 bolts back into the drive shaft going into the output flange of the transmission. The torque spec for these bolts is 75 Newton meters. So it's tricky to torque down the drive shaft. The torque spec for each bolt is 75 Newton meters, so that's pretty high. And I have no way of counter holding. And so what we did was we put the timing alignment tool into the flywheel, and we put the transmission into first gear, and I'm hoping that'll enable me to torque down all the bolts. When we need to rotate it, we'll pop it out of gear, rotate the drive shaft, lock it into first gear again, and then torque those bolts down as well.
Oh, beautiful.
Now we're going to bolt the drive shaft to the differential, and we're going to use the same torque spec as we did on the output flange. Next, we put the heat shields back on, and then we're going to torque the 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and 6 bolts / nuts. It's a 10mm. I don't know the torque spec, so we're just going to go nice and snug. Next, we're going to torque the input shaft for the power steering. This bolt is a 10mm, and the torque spec is 30 Newton meters. Next, we're going to try to put the exhaust in. I luckily have a helper with me today, so her and I will hopefully get the exhaust put in a lot quicker than how long it took for me to take it out. All right?
Yeah.
My arch nemesis is about to witness a ratchet strap. So the reason I'm going to use a ratchet strap, I'm going to go around the muffler right here and then around the transmission mount that goes on the body, and by doing so I should be able to get enough force where it just pops over that sprung loaded connection. At least in theory. A lot of things in theory don't work out. If you are a Jaguar certified technician, cover your eyes. Okay, I think the hard part's over. The exhaust is on. Now we're just gonna do the rubber isolators and tighten down the headers. Sorry, the catalytic converters coming off of the headers. The torque spec for the bolts on the exhaust clamp is 55 Newton meters. Next, spooky, we're gonna put the rubber isolators on, and then we can lower the transmission jack from the exhaust. And then we have the cross bracing that goes on. I think there's 3 or 4 of them, but that'll be quick. Once that's complete, then we're gonna do the AC compressor bolting. We're gonna slip the accessory belt on over the AC compressor, and then we go up top, the cooling system, and once that's complete, not much more than fill oil, fill coolant, and see if she starts. We're now torquing this cross brace. There are 4 13mm bolts, and their torque spec is 48 Newton meters. We finally got this bar mounted. So the torque specs for the 13mm head bolts are going to be 20 Newton meters. So the ones on the outer edge. The torques are 25 Newton meters, and then the ones going into the heat shield, the 10mm socket heads, they are 4.8 Newton meters. For the 10mm socket heads, we're gonna just do it hand tight. We just mounted this bar on. It uses a 13mm socket head bolt, and the torque spec for these 2 bolts is 63 Newton meters. We finally made it to the back, and we can finally remove the bubble wrap off the tips there. The exhaust is mounted fully. We have all the support braces on, and finally we have this beauty trim that we're going to mount. The beauty trim uses 2 T30 bolts, and we're just going to do it hand tight. Okay, next we got the AC compressor bolted on, and we're gonna torque the 3 13mm bolts. The torque spec is 25 Newton meters for all 3. Now I'm gonna torque the 15mm head bolts for the brake caliper bracket. The torque spec is 115 Newton meters. Time to tidy up some stuff over here. So we're still working under the hood. I did a lot of work off camera. Got the coolant hoses hooked up. Now I'm going to tighten the upper radiator hose mount. Sorry. I'm going to tighten the upper radiator mounts. Torque this crossbar. Do the strut top nuts. And then once that's done, we're pretty much ready to rock and roll. Fill it with oil. Connect the battery. and then do the coolant and see if she starts. We're replacing the drain plug. There was a little bit of oil left in the engine from the original owner, and so we drained the remaining oil out of it. Hopefully we can blackstone it just to get an idea of what the engine was like, and then we put a new drain plug on. For a new drain plug, the torque spec is 24 Newton meters. After like 50 hours working on the F-Type, it's finally going to touch the ground, and we're going to fill it with coolant, oil, and do a crank and see what happens. Fingers crossed. Welcome back. Once you have your oil filter ready to go, you just pop it in there, rotate it, get it nice and snug as much as you can by hand, and then we will torque it as well. But I will share the link to this oil filter cap. It is super convenient. If this hose wasn't in the way, it'd be even more convenient. There it goes, pops on like that. I'm just gonna use the torque wrench. There we go, that's it, easy peasy. It actually says on the cap, 25 Newton meters. Next step is we're gonna fill coolant. We got Xerox, and we actually have a bucket here full of it. So that's what we're going to use to fill. So we do have the special tool that pulls a vacuum on the whole system. So what you're going to do is you take this tool, I'll probably try to share it on the link below. You pop it onto the coolant reservoir, and then this is the feed line, so that goes into your bucket. That's now sitting in the bucket, and you have another line here which causes a Venturi effect to take place, causing a suction into the coolant reservoir. By having a suction, we can then listen for if there's any hissing happening around the engine bay. If there is, that means we have a leak. If there is no leak, and we don't hear any hissing, then we are golden, we are good, we are ready to go. So, I'm going to take my shop air, hook it up, make sure this is all fine and dandy. So that's nice and tight. Now, let's pull a vacuum and let's see if it holds. Okay everyone, we have filled the coolant, we have filled the oil, we have bled the clutch, we have a helper in the seat, she's gonna crank. So what we actually did, we pulled the fuel pump fuse, and we're hoping that by doing that we can just have the starter turn over the engine, start getting oil pumping around. The starter should have sufficient RPM to actually build up some pressure and push it throughout the engine. All right, Natalie, are you ready?
No.
I'm not ready either.
Alright.
Out of gear? Okay.
Ready?
Ready to go. Okay. Try again. We got a bit of a scare, we think. We haven't checked it. But we were getting the low battery light on the dashboard. And I didn't know, and she didn't tell me, so it's all her fault. So we got the jump pack on. That's a pretty beefy jump pack, so that will even jumpstart semis. So hopefully the semi truck of an engine of the AJ126 will enjoy some juice. So we're gonna try again, out of gear. Okay, hopefully the fuel pump is not running, so just be cranking the motor.
Ready?
Yep. Shall we put the fuel pump relay in? Okay, first startup, let's see what she does. Yeah. There you go, ladies and gentlemen. There's gonna be stuff that's gonna be burning off, but she started. Sounds pretty good. Look at that. It's like 2 in the morning. What we got here? Do not. That's still from the dealer, from them wanting to wash the car. But I'm gonna close the hood. We're gonna back it out of here. Hopefully the clutch engages. We did bleed it, but hopefully she'll get going now. Tricky part is that lip right there. She's doing good. Do not scrape. Jaguar. Look at that. We're gonna keep the tow hook in, you never know. Woo. Ladies and gentlemen, this has been a wild ride. Look at that thing. Woo-hoo-hoo. I'm sorry, but if you've ever spent probably a good portion of November trying to fix this, October and November, it's a little burbly, but I assume once we drive it for a bit, it will clear up. You like your Jag?
Still don't trust it.
No.
I'd like a shifter too.
Yeah. Okay, well I'm gonna go change and let's get that shift knob on, let it warm up, see if it stays cool, and then probably go for a ride. Oh, we have to swap license plates too. We have it
just registered it today.
Yeah, registered it before seeing it run. That's how confident we are, but I didn't think it would take till 2 in the morning to get this done. Good looking car for all those F-Type owners. Man, it looks good. Alright. Thank you for staying tuned and watching this adventure.